Okay, let's try a couple more before we move to adding and subtracting. Let's take a look at number 6. So we have t to the second minus t to the third minus 10t. So that t has a power of 1. So it says write it in standard form, identify the degree and leading coefficient, and then classify the polynomial by the number of terms. So if you look, our highest exponent is this 3. So that's a negative t to the third plus the next one would be t to the second minus 10t. That's written in standard form. The next thing it says to do is identify the degree. Well, your degree is going to be your highest exponent, so that's going to be a 3. And then your leading coefficient is always that first number once it's written in standard form. So here, this is a -1, so my leading coefficient is -1. And then classifying it by the number of terms. If you think here, we have one term here, one term here, and one term here. So that's 3 terms, which means that this is a trinomial. Okay, so now let's take a look at adding and subtracting. So with addition and subtraction, we have to combine what we call like terms. So the first thing we want to do is determine what is happening. So in this problem, I want to subtract here. That's essentially like a -1 right there. So because that's a -1 and I have this set in parentheses, I need to do what we call distributive property. And I need to distribute that negative into everything behind the parenthesis. So I'm going to rewrite this 4n to the second plus 5. And then if I take -1 times a -2, that gives me plus 2n squared. -1 and 2n gives me minus 2n, and then negative and a negative give me plus 4. So now that I've distributed, I no longer need my parentheses, and I can take a look at that and combine like terms. If you remember a like term, by definition, if you are a like term, there are two things that happen. You have the same variable, and that variable has the same exponent. So if you look at this problem, this has an n and this has an n, but because this is an n to the second and this is an n to the first, they are not considered like terms. So they have to have the same variable and the same exponent. So now we just go and combine them. Here's a 4n to the second and a 2n to the second. So imagine those as apples. If you had 4 and I had 2, we had 6 total. So that means I have 6n to the second. So that takes care of those. And then I have a 5, and this has no variable with it. So whatever does not have a variable with it is what's going to go with it. Let's go 2 bars there. So a +5 and a +4 give me plus 9. And then the only thing left is the minus 2n to the first power. And you don't need to necessarily write the first power. Now, your answers must always be written in standard form. So this is not written in standard form because my variables exponents are not going from highest to lowest. So we need to rewrite that. So it's going to be 6n to the second minus 2n plus 9. And that is going to be the answer to your problem. So you're just simply combining like terms. Let's take a look at the next one. If we distribute that negative, because that's a subtraction sign, I have 4x squared minus 3x plus 5, and then I have minus 3x squared. A negative and a negative give me plus x, and then a negative and a negative give me plus 8. And then I always just start at the very beginning. This is an x squared. Do I have another x squared? Yes, I do. If I have 4 here and I take 3 away, I have 1x squared. And then I have a 3x here and an x. So that's a -3 and a +1. So that gives me minus 2x. And then I have a 5, no variable, an 8 that has a no variable. So +5 and a +8 give me plus 13. And if you look, that's already written in standard form because it's going from high